years now already, and we are still very passionate about it, and yeah, we are more than happy to share some of our motivation with you. This would be, unfortunately, our colleague, Mr. Kamundu from the city of Windhoek, hasn't made it yet here, as he's still stuck in a site visit of the bus depot, but he might still join us later. Then we have, to my right, you see Mr. Michael Engelskirchen, also from GIZ. He recently joined the project team in Namibia, but he has been technically accompanying the project also since its beginning from the GIZ headquarters side, and he's now responsible for the non-motorized transport activities, which he will also elaborate on later, and also the road safety part. And myself, Gregor Schmoll, I'm responsible for the Move Windhoek public transport activities under our team leader, Professor Zema, here in Namibia. Okay, I would say, as I said or announced earlier, I'll switch off the camera now, that you can focus on the presentation. Okay, then let us start now. Just as a small background, it was decided among the Ministry of Works and Transport here in Namibia and the city of Windhoek, as well as with other stakeholders in the beginning of 2012, to develop a transport master plan for Windhoek and the surrounding areas. And this master plan was intended to provide for an efficient, affordable, equitable, safe and convenient public and non-motorized transport. And the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development through the GIZ supported, still supports, and also will continue to support this project in the future. Now, for our presentation today, okay, I see we have quite a delay in skipping the slides. Just give me a second. Okay, there we are. So I hope you all see the agenda now. Just to give you a brief overview on what we are planning to talk about. First, we're going to give you a short project background. Then we talk about the plan itself and how we developed it. Then, as announced earlier, Michael will speak about the non-motorized transport. And depending on the time we have left, we're also going to give you a short overview of the current developments, bus fleet modernization, and also capacity development. Okay, let's come to the project background. I hope you all see now the project background slide. If not, I will still continue because I'm not really sure how fast the connection is. Windhoek's population is rapidly growing at 3.1% per annum, which is above the national growth rate of 2.6%. And as a result, more housing, more jobs, new infrastructure and services are required to meet such demand in the future. And the key task of the government of Namibia and the city of Windhoek is to cater for this growing population and future demand of the growing economy and to plan for those fast increasing needs. Transport affects Windhoek's residents' daily lives in different ways. For instance, in getting to and from work or being able to access essential services such as health, education, recreation in all areas of the city and for all parts of the population. And transport obviously can also affect private sector opportunities, and the efficiency of public transport can back up or constrain businesses. And while the city of Windhoek operates on a much smaller scale compared to most other cities in the world, the present trends we can observe here are comparable. We were talking about reduced accessibility and thus also social isolation and exclusion caused by inadequate mobility of the urban poor, ever-increasing traffic congestion, unacceptable high rates of traffic accidents, high consumer costs, energy dependence, and pollution. And this is in fact that 87% of Windhoek's population are seen as low-income earners, who cannot afford an own car, and 52% of those low-income earners can't even afford public transportation at all. And we are left with low-income earners that spend 24% of their disposable income for their mobility needs at the moment. In addition to that, as you can imagine, that many people have to rely on non-motorized transport. We have hardly any infrastructure that assists them in their non-motorized transport. Now let's have a look at the model shift. Some statistics: 70% of all trips are made by motorized transport, of which only 6% are conducted by municipal buses. So you can see that the transport infrastructure of the city is really very much geared to car transport. And when you look down at the public transport, taxis are really the dominating mode in public transport. And when it comes to non-motorized transport, really walking is the mode of choice, as the infrastructure for cycling is not given. Another statistics quite interesting, when you look at the number of passengers though, in public transport, the numbers are really quickly increasing. And you can see that the number of passengers from 2010 to 2013 has risen 167%, but at the same time you can see that the number of buses in operation remain constantly at 80 buses, which is an increase of 0%. And this is really characterizing the state of the bus system. You have, which is really not adequate anymore for the demand. You have long waiting times, poor operations, poor maintenance, low coverage, operating only from Monday to Friday, and that only in the mornings and afternoons, and this also only one directional. So it can really be said that the public transport cannot really cover the demand. Now, when you come to the objective of the master plan, the picture you should see now, I hope, is a picture that we recently did in a promotional for promotional reasons, and this really summarizes the approach that we have, which is really the traditional avoid, shift, improve approach. We try to avoid the need for unnecessary travel, shift towards more sustainable modes of transport, and try to improve the efficiency and safety of all modes. And this is really what this picture summarizes. I just get notified that the slides work quite well. That sounds good, so you should be able to see what we see. Okay, this does not look very nice. But you should be able to see a world map now, which highlights the international publicity that this plan has got. We have been invited to UN Habitat in New York to introduce the plan there. We were at the Berlin High-Level Dialogue on implementing Rio +20. We were featured at the Walk 21 in Munich. And as I say this, the city of Windhoek just arrives in our meeting. So I would like to welcome Mr. Erwin Kamundu, Head of Passenger Regulation, City of Windhoek. Thank you very much. Erwin, thanks for coming. Great that you still could make it. And Erwin can join us for the discussion later as well. Yeah, coming to the awards, it's also just something I would like to highlight. Here you can see Erwin's boss, the manager of public transport, Mr. Rupin Gena, receiving the prize, the UITP Award for Innovative Mobility, handed over by Jacques van der Merwe, the head of African branch of UITP. One of the aspects which made this project a success, and which is also one of the reasons why we got this this award from the UITP, is the public participation process in which we engaged. And this was yeah, we really employed the whole palette of public participation and information measures when it comes to the plan. We had official public hearings, discussions in schools and youth centers. Okay, now youth centers, public fairs, which you can see in the picture. We had face-to-face interviews with important stakeholders and stakeholder representatives. We really forced public relations, that is newspaper articles, radio interviews, but also online communication was quite important, and it still is. We have a website going and are also active in social media like Facebook and Twitter. Okay, now let's come to the plan itself and how we developed this. What you can see on the map here is the study area, which is not limited to Windhoek. It is focused on Windhoek, but not limited to. The settlements of Okahanya and Rehoboth, with about approximately 30,000 inhabitants, are also part of it, and also the international airport, Hosea Kutako, with about 800 to 900,000 passengers per year, also part of the plan. Now, I don't want to bore you with too many technical and methodology details, but as this was an important foundation of the whole plan, I would just like to give you a brief overview about the methodology and especially the scenario assessment. The main features of this evaluation method were a scenario development with certain measures to be assessed, economic assessments of investments, a multi-criteria assessment of impacts, and a system dynamics model for the macroeconomic assessment. Two types of scenarios have to be distinguished, which is the land use transport scenarios and the land use and the transport scenarios, sorry. And what I would really like to highlight here is that one of the first and most important decision makers in this project had to take is which land use scenario Windhoek would follow. And only based on this decision, the transport scenarios, business as usual and sustainable urban transport have been developed. And the business as usual scenario, continuing the current policies, urban sprawl, higher car dependency, and the sustainable urban transport scenario would bring with it improvements in public transport, more motorized transport, change of model share in favor of those two. And so why it was so important to determine the land use scenario is what we really figured was that the future transport demand and traffic patterns are heavily influenced by future land use patterns. That is new settlements, densification of existing settlements, and other land use measures influence travel behavior of households and firms. And what the SUTMP, the master plan, really strived to do was to integrate land use planning and transport planning. And yeah, by way of consequence, when estimating future transport demand, considerations had to be given for developing integrated land use and transport planning schemes. And so what we did is we developed those three land use scenarios that you just seen, and it was decided in favor of a polycentric land use model, which you can see on the right-hand side, which means that we have mixed land use, decentralized concentration, but also strong transit corridor oriented development, especially when it comes to the north of Windhoek, where you can see the settlements of Brakwater and Elisenheim, which would follow a transit corridor oriented development. I hope you can still see us and hear us, or hear us.
Yeah, we can hear you. At least I can.
Okay, that's at least one. Enough to continue. Just a brief overview about the proposed measures which were proposed and also used for the model. We're talking about, when it comes to public transport in Windhoek, we have two variants which are bus rapid transit and light rail transit. When it comes to the public transport in the northern corridor, we're also looking at commuter rail, but also bus rapid transit. When it comes to the corridors in the south and the east, we're looking at express bus services. Then the non-motorized transport obviously is part of the model. So are road reclassification as well as other accompanying measures in the institutional legal framework and transport management. Now, not really a surprise, you could say, is that bus transport should be the core of the public transport system, and this is just one of many main principles that has been decided on after the decision for the polycentric land use scenario has been made. Other main principles that we are using is that of a highly integrated system of public transport with BRT and also light rail transit to be further investigated for the high frequency corridors, which are the blue and the red line you can see in the map. It was also agreed upon that a public transport system needs space, which needs to be secured, either from existing road space or through acquisition of additional land. And this principle alone, I would say, is quite new for the decision makers, and we had serious discussion about that. If this is really something we want, to take away road space from cars. But this is really a key feature that has been decided on. Other key features of the new system are operation during the whole day and also on the weekends, short frequencies during peak hours, which is one of the biggest challenges at the moment, I have to say. Public transport has priority at intersections. Then also that the existing railway structures could be an option for commuter rail. Easy access for mobility restricted persons, which is also new. And obviously quite important that the dominating taxi industry at the moment has to be integrated into the whole system. Non-motorized transport, obviously, as I said, is an important feature, but we come to that later. So I skip this one now. Yeah, and this is also quite important that the network improvements are to be prioritized in accordance with demand, poverty, and access considerations along the main corridors. But the whole system should have an integrated and holistic character. What you should be able to see in the map now is the proposed measures will be implemented in phases over the next 20 years. And since most demand is generated in the northern neighborhoods, which are mainly low-income neighborhoods, the first two lines are proposed here. I'm trying to show you something now. You should be able to see, hopefully to see the mouse now. That is what you can see here. To the north, you have the railway, which is the planned backbone of the system, but only towards the end of the planning horizon, which is really 2027 to 2032. But I can also say that there are political efforts made that this will be employed a lot earlier. On the right-hand side, you could see that over time, additional high service bus corridors are added, which continues in the phase 3 and phase 4. Phase 4, maybe another interesting aspect is that you have a big settlement in the north, which is the Brackwater area, which was at the time the plan was set up supposed to have to grow up to 250,000 inhabitants in 2032, which is only anticipated to be 100,000 inhabitants now, as they're having problems with water supply there. Okay, traffic demand management also part, but not that highlighted. Institutional setup, also very important, but I'm going to skip this now and come to non-motorized transport as the time is running. Non-motorized transport, Michael, please take over.
Okay. I will start with 3 slides of pictures of the current situation for cyclists and pedestrians. What you can see in those pictures, that most non-motorized transport happens on the road. This is, on the one hand, due to a lack of proper infrastructure, the discontinuity in the network, or if there's a network or if there are facilities, they are often weak, not well maintained. So people are basically forced to walk on the road. But on the other hand, this is also due to a lack of awareness of the non-motorized transport users itself. And so they're not aware of the risk they are running. In particular, one hotspot here in Windhoek is the crossing of the Western Bypass, which is like a freeway going around Windhoek. So people are crossing that freeway where cars are running at high speed. But also the motorized road users are not aware of the road safety risk occurring with pedestrians or cyclists on the road. So people are often using the road, although infrastructure is available, and impose themselves to the danger of getting hit in a road accident. A lot of pedestrians or cyclists in particular, are not able to get to their work, to their school, or whatever with a proper network. So there are some areas where we have walkways, where we have like a small cycle path, but there's no chance to drive safely from one part of the city to another. As an alternative, in particular pedestrians, they find the way. The one is I just mentioned, crossing the freeway on the way from home to work, or walking in the riverbeds, which is it's on one hand not planned, and it's often dangerous with regard to security and to safety for the pedestrians, and also pose a risk to the environment in that riverbeds. So what is the strategy of Windhoek that was developed in the Masterplan? Non-motorized transport must form an integral part of the urban transport system. In particular, it has an important role for the poorer part of the population, but also for the middle income people. It could play an important role getting to work, or at least for leisure trips. So main objective of the master plan with regard to non-motorized transport is accessibility for the poor people getting to work, getting to school, to universities, so improving their chances to get a better education or get better workplaces. Another objective was improving the road safety for non-motorized transport users, so meaning providing own infrastructure for them, separated from motorized transport, and also providing safe crossings or opportunities for crossing roads. And what the third objective, main objective, is improving the security for the pedestrians, in particular, for example, those walking through the riverbeds, where we often have bad lighting, but also for the bicycles itself, if they are parked somewhere, so providing secure parking facilities for cyclists. Within the master plan, or the ongoing measures following the master plan, we are planning to have to cater for non-motorized transport within these bus corridors. Gregor just presented. On the one hand, for within the corridor, so if we are doing infrastructure improvement for buses, we also think about improving the infrastructure for the pedestrians and cyclists, but also as an access to public transport facilities. That means providing infrastructure and providing parking facilities at the bus stops. Parallel to the infrastructure measures, the strategy foresees that there are some awareness campaigns, like here on the slide, the Car-Free Day, Windhoek on Bike, that already was organized this year, increasing awareness of pedestrians, of motorized transport users, and motivating in particular the young people using their bicycle for going to school or university. There have been some initiatives to build a public or non-motorized transport network, but it hasn't come to an end where we have a real network. So this is one of the issues of the master plan, that there have been some non-motor or bicycle routes been developed that are now looking for implementation. We will, in a first step, concentrate on some important road sections. One measure, for example, is the cycling or improvement of cycling and pedestrian infrastructure in the northern suburbs between I will show you with the mouse cursor, between the two bus corridors we are currently under study. So the red line, the yellow line in between, connecting the low-income residential area in the north with the northern industrial. So many people using that corridor for walking to work. So we are planning together with the City of Windhoek to improve that section, also addressing the road safety hotspot along the Western Bypass, where here are many people crossing the Western Bypass next to a bridge, but on level with the Western Bypass, with the highway. Another strategy of the City of Windhoek is using planned or current road constructions or rehabilitations, and always including non-motorized transport infrastructure, which will lead to a gradual development of a network, and together with constructions. And an initiative from the Ministry of Works and Transport is doing a road safety assessment with a focus on the safety of non-motorized transport users. This will be done along the urban main roads, aiming at identifying measures, improving infrastructure, doing some signage along the road, or awareness campaigns to improve the safety of non-motorized transport users. I already mentioned several times, road safety, in particular for pedestrians, is a big problem. There are many accidents where pedestrians or cyclists are involved. So approximately half of the number of all accidents in Namibia are with pedestrians or cyclists. In particular in Windhoek, this is a big problem. So we are addressing this issue with several measures, including those just presented. Whereas one of the worst problems, surely the pedestrians crossing the freeway, the Western Bypass in Windhoek. Yeah, that's a brief introduction into non-motorized transport within the Move Windhoek project, and yeah, Gregor will continue with the current development.
Yes, colleagues. As we don't want to waste too much of your time, and obviously also want to open the floor for discussion, I'd rather go a bit quicker through the next chapters, just to give you a brief impression on what we are currently doing. As there was one picture I skipped before. The master plan has been launched in last year, September 2013. It was launched together by the Ministry of Works and Transport, the Ministry of Local Government, and also the City of Windhoek. So we are actually already in the next phase, coming closer and closer to the real implementation phase. What we are currently doing at the moment, we are conducting a pre-feasibility study, which has two main focuses. The one focus is As you might recall, you saw a picture earlier where you saw the two BRT trunk routes. And the pre-feasibility study is really the focusing on a pre-feasibility design for those two trunk corridors, the BRT line 1 and 2. But we haven't yet focused on a technical solution yet, so the light rail transit is still an option, and that's why it's also still called a pre-feasibility study, as we're not conducting a full-blown feasibility study yet for a specific technical solution. A second package of this study, which is conducted at the moment, is the further development of the bus network, which is really aiming at short-term implementation. And so we're talking about implementing a reliable public bus schedule, passenger information systems, adequate bus stop locations, and also new vehicles. For this short-term implementation, short-term improvements of the bus system, we're looking at already March 2015, or let's say first quarter 2015. Also, to give you a short impression on the bus fleet modernization, which is also an interesting project in that regard. And what you're really seeing here now on the next picture is hot off the press, I would say, and you're the first actually in public to see this, are some designs for the new buses, which will be procured together through the city of Windhoek and GIZ. You should be able to see the new designs now. That's what it more or less will look like. One additional point I would like to highlight is the importance of capacity development. The master plan clearly states that within the existing capacities, a major shift towards more sustainable transport provision is not possible. There are capacity deficits in major areas such as public transport planning, operations, non-motorized transport planning and implementation, regulation, and also general management and organization. So in this regard, we are working on a broad set of measures such as on-the-job training, internships, other trainings and seminars, study tours, and two things we are working on. For example, what you could see now is that we are soon to hire an integrated expert for the city of Windhoek, who will support the city with their bus operations, routing and scheduling of existing and new bus routes, and support to the operations management. And what is obviously quite important in that regard is on-the-job training for the whole department of transport in the city. And another item that we engage on is also capacity building in terms of training. We are closely cooperating with the Center of Transport Studies of the Cape Town University in South Africa, and quite a few of the staff of City of Windhoek Transport Department, also Land Use Department, but also of the Ministry of Works and Transport, have the chance to participate in courses in public transport and land use planning. Yeah, I think that this here we could stop, and thank you for your attention. I would thank you for your attention now, and hand back over to Matthias, that we can come to the discussion and some of your questions. Thank you very much.
Yes, so thanks Gregor, as well as to Michael, for this really interesting presentation and the insights to the work that you have been onto during more than 2 years, particularly on the Sustainable Urban Transport Master Plan. I will just quickly switch back to the presentation, and I hope that you can see my screen again. So you should see the slide moving Windhoek again from the presentation. Yeah, and we'll quickly go through. Okay, and so I think many of you have quite a few questions, so I would just open the floor as well. And so please, if you have a question, you are all invited to just write this question in the chat function. If you are too lazy to write your question down, you may also just say that you would like to speak, and then I will activate your microphone and you can raise the question in that way. So, okay, I think Mutabasi, Sam Stewart has a question. I will just turn on the microphone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm called Sam Mutabazi from Kampala, Uganda. I'm more interested in the topography of Windhoek. I've not been to Windhoek, but I think from the pictures I've seen, it seems to me like it's more of a flat area compared to Kampala, which is hilly. Therefore, it seems like the development of transport systems is easier in Windhoek than in Kampala, which, for instance, is more hilly and is prone to flooding. What do you advise on cities that are hilly in terms of developing sustainable and efficient safe transport systems for such cities like Kampala, Kigali, and others? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe I would briefly go into that. That's actually an interesting question, the question of topography. I think you were talking about especially about Kampala, as it is quite a hilly city, and so it might not be so appropriate for one might think that it is not so appropriate for cycling or for walking. And yeah, there are probably some examples of cities where cycling works nevertheless quite well. I don't know what are actually the experiences of the city of Windhoek on that.
Yes, I was. Sorry. I was just inquiring about, I don't know, but from the pictures you were showing in this presentation, it really seems like Windhoek is more flat and therefore can support many modes of transport quite easily than cities that are within hilly areas. I know that, for instance, Kampala is embracing the BRT and the cycling, but it seems to be a challenge because you find so many hills in most of the places in the city. So how, is it a challenge? Do you think it is a challenge?
Yeah, I think it is definitely a challenge. If we're looking, for example, also to cities in Brazil, to Rio de Janeiro, for example, I think many of us have this picture in the head. So there are a lot of favelas where people live with quite a low income. And when public transport corridors and public transport services are expanded, first of all, those corridors are, of course, laid along the areas which are easy to reach, so meaning that they are flat and in the valley, and the inhabitants from the low-income areas have difficult access to those corridors. A few cities are addressing this question, actually, if we're talking really about a difficult topography, by cable cars. So actually my colleague Nico, who's also joining us, he has quite some interest in this topic. Maybe he would like to call for an example, which he recently sent me from Mexico, where a city is installing such a cable car to facilitate the access to public transport for low income population.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Nico, are you there? So if he cannot answer. Maybe we can just switch over to the next question. Okay, so we have quite a few questions via the chat function. One was actually also addressing low-income population, and the question came from, one second please, the question came from Joanna Lepinotti, and she's asking that, or she was stating that a big part of the population cannot afford public transport services. So a question to Gregor, does the SUTMP Windhoek address this question, for example, by providing subsidies for public transport services, or what's the strategy of the city of Windhoek?
My colleague from the city of Windhoek will answer this question.
Thank you very much. My name is Erwin Kamu. I'm from the City of Windhoek Public Transport Division. I'm the section head passenger transport regulation. Yes, it's very true that the big chunk of the population cannot afford public transport, because from the report, public transport it's costing our low-income earners up to 87, up to 24% of their disposable income. Just a brief background on that is that in Windhoek there is no functional public transport. Just to start with, the public transport, what we call public transport in Windhoek is it's taxis, young taxi, four-seater taxis, which cater for the most population of the public transport in Windhoek. The other one is the municipal buses, the company that I work for. It operates only 79 buses. 79 buses. At most, only 56 buses that are operational daily. So the strategy that we have, since we developed this, the plan is government owned, it's state owned. The government, the public transport in Windhoek was never subsidized by the central government. It was the municipal buses that we call public transport was only done from the ratepayers' money. Now that the government has come up with a sustainable urban transport master plan, the strategy is to pull in the government to subsidize public transport. I think I have answered the question.
And since there's nobody from government here to object.
Yeah, I think that is a very good answer actually. So the city of Windhoek recognized that it is necessary to subsidize public transport to maintain actually a quality that is desirable. So yeah, this allows to actually react on the fact that if you have no public support, or if you give we make public transport services a subject of the free market, probably not the level of service is reached that would be desirable for the entire population, because they could simply not afford the high transport fares. Okay, let's get over to one of the next questions. So Oleg Sasatny from the city of Lviv in Ukraine is asking how the project is actually integrating into the national transport strategy. So is there actually a national transport strategy, a general one or one for urban transport in Namibia? and how the project is.
Sorry, the question was how does public transport integrate into the national transport strategy?
How the Sustainable Urban Transport Masterplan is integrating with the national transport strategy.
Okay.
Yes, the Sustainable Urban Transport Masterplan is linked with national, regional, and international policies.
So sorry, we are having some interference, so I just muted everyone and unmuted Gregor again and the colleagues from Namibia.
Yes. What I was saying is that the Sustainable Urban Transport Masterplan is aligned with the relevant policies instrument at national, regional, and global scales. It at international level, at international policy, it includes aspects of green economy transitions that can address the challenges of transport sectors, upgrading road design standards and safety. This is considering the national report to the UN Commission on Sustainable Development. On national policy, the public transport included in an annual sectoral execution plan developed by the Ministry of Works and Transport in priority area based on NDP4, National Development Program for Identified Strategy. At the regional level, the Sustainable Urban Transport Master Plan built on transport safety strategic plan for the Commerce region, which is the project area of 2011, and the City of Windhoek Arterial Master Plan, as well as the transportation land use for the City of Windhoek, amongst other plans. I hope I have answered your question.
So I don't know if we completely answered the question, because our colleague from Ukraine who was raising the question just left, but I think we answered it sufficiently at the moment, and I would go over to the next question. One question from Zazai Akoy was relating to the physical challenge, which we have actually already been speaking about a little bit, so I would rather prefer to jump over that and to come to the question of Martin Mendelssohn, who asked whether the density of Windhoek was recognized when specifying the BRT corridor in the 2027 plan, and what was the regard also for the higher income and lower income density areas. So probably this question would rather be whether the demand is high enough that, or is so high that it requires a BRT corridor, or if other options could be feasible as well. For example, buses with higher level of services, or just standard bus services, or probably like also a light rail transit system, if I understood the question right.
Okay. Well, actually, there are two answers to this question. Let me start from the end, or from the future. As I was earlier elaborating on, was that the key decision makers really decided in favor of a specific land use structure, a polycentric development, but together with densification on transport corridors. So you will see a densification on the relevant routes within the next 20 years. That's one part of the answer of the question. Second answer of the question, as Matthias just put it now, what we do have at the moment is a demand during peak hours of about 3,000 persons per hour per direction, which you could say is actually on the verge of making a bus rapid transit system feasible, at least for the main corridors. But nevertheless, you're also right. You could also consider a bus with a high-level service on these routes. But I can also tell you that this discussion has not come to an end yet, and we might also see something which you could put in between a fully fledged BRT and the bus high-level service, something we would call something like a BRT Lite, which would then have some features of a bus rapid transit system, maybe features like pre-boarding, but maybe not a physically segregated bus line.
Okay, thank you, Georg. As the time is running out, I would try to go a little bit quicker through the next question. So Diogo Pires Ferreira was asking what is actually the change of the new bus network to the previous one, and if there has been any kind of rationalization. Maybe I will try to answer that from my side pretty quickly, and Gregor may just add something to that. So we previously heard that the bus services were pretty basic, so that there were just particular or single bus services like at the morning and evening times, and so that there's quite a limited bus capacity at all. So that now the priority is actually to extend the bus services also throughout the day. And less a question of rationalizing the existing services. Did I get that right, Gregor?
That's correct, Matthias.
Okay. The question of bike sharing, was that addressed in Windhoek? The question from Michael Linke, who was asking that a lot of cities who have made progress with cycling, and that they are also thinking about or have featured bike sharing systems. So he was asking whether this is on the agenda in Windhoek.
Well, I try to answer this. So to my knowledge, this is currently not on the agenda to introduce a bike sharing system in Windhoek. But, well, Michael, you are invited to discuss this issue with us. It could be on the agenda, but I think that must be more on the private sector initiative.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yes.
Good.
Michael, please come and visit us and talk about this with us.
Okay, yeah, so now that it's already 1 o'clock, I wouldn't like to raise many more questions. But would refer, in case of any further questions on the Sustainable Urban Transport Master Plan in Windhoek, directly to the colleagues. And on the next slide, probably, if I'm right, actually, there should, no, not on that one, but we will share the presentation with every one of you, and the contact details of our colleagues in Windhoek are there. So if you have any further particular questions, the colleagues for sure are happy to answer them to you personally by mail. So from my side, thanks to all that were attending. I would just briefly draw your attention on a few further sources which are probably interesting for further studying. So first of all, the SUTMP Windhoek can be downloaded on the project webpage. The link is behind in the presentation. You will receive it later on. From the Sustainable Urban Transport projects, we are having actually also several publications which are relevant for the topic of urban mobility planning. So those are listed here, and we are at the moment also working on one new publication which is actually analyzing the different approaches from 7 different countries on urban mobility planning, because there is at the moment happening actually a lot in India and Brazil the national ministries made it obligatory to develop urban mobility plans for receiving local funding, and this aspect and a lot of other aspects will be described and outlined in this new publication, which we will also share with the participants of the webinar as soon as it is available in the mid of October, probably. Some further sources, also the European Union is actually doing a lot to support cities in Europe in the framework of sustainable urban mobility planning. So they developed even some guidelines which help cities to design and conduct the process of developing an urban mobility plan, which can be downloaded on the webpage mobilityplans.eu. Furthermore, there are several EU projects which are dealing with this issue and trying to solve many of these issues like civic participation and participation between the different authority levels, on how to select the right measures and how to evaluate them, and on many other aspects of urban mobility planning. A lot of these implications can be found on the site of the Challenges project. And also the project, the webpage of the EPOM Endurance Project is interesting to watch, because you can get interesting information about the policy frameworks for urban mobility planning in many European countries. Furthermore, if you would like to be updated and be kept up to date on training courses, on webinars, on other events for sustainable urban transport, you might have a look regularly on the CAPSUT webpage, which is a platform for capacity building events from various partners. So actually every organization is free to place own events there, which can be seen by the viewers of the webpage. Further information on our offers and our products in the field of sustainable urban mobility, you can watch out here on this slide, so it's worth clicking through probably. And I would like to finally say thank you all for joining and listening to our webinar, and especially saying thank you to our colleagues from Namibia and to Erin Kamamandu. I'm sorry to not pronounce your name right at the moment, but many thanks for joining us and supporting us in the discussion. And in case of any further question, please don't hesitate to contact us via mail. Good.